Hey, hockey fans, welcome to the 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Chino Retta. You know, I've spent over 4 decades working in the game of hockey, fortunate enough to meet some of the legends of the game, saw them come into the league, watched them shine in the game, and now they've moved on to life after hockey. The 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast gives us a chance to catch up, tell some great stories, relive some great memories, and hear what they're up to today. Today's NHL legend, one of the highest scoring Swedes in NHL history, the longest serving captain in Canucks franchise history, the record holder for most goals in a single World Junior Championship, Markus Naslund. Markus, great to see you again, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Gino. Good to see you.
Where are you right now? Where am I catching you? I know you've been a world traveler since you retired.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I'm actually in Miami right now for holidays. So got my whole family with me, which is rare these days, but it's nice to be on this side of the Atlantic again.
But I'm assuming your home base now is back in Sweden.
Yeah, that's correct. So I moved back right after my last year in New York. So I moved back in 2009. So it's 14 years now. Time flies.
Yeah. Are you back in Örnsköldsvik, your town in Sweden? Is that where you're back now?
Yeah. Moved back there, and the team from the town is Modo, a well-known team in the hockey world. And yeah, so I moved back there, and I actually played half a season when I moved back, and then I stepped into a management role right after retiring.
Are you still in management right now? Are you still involved with Modo? I mean, that's a world famous hockey team. People know that team.
Yeah. No, I worked for about 3.5 years, and after that, I felt that I wanted to do something different. So I've actually been involved in real estate development the last 8 or 9 years. So it's been fun to do something different and something outside of hockey.
That's awesome. All right, so I want to talk to you about your hometown, like Örnsköldsvik, Sweden, a population of about 32,000 people, and yet it's produced yourself, Peter Forsberg, Victor Hedman, the Sedin twins, some all-time great hockey legends. Statistically speaking, it's crazy that that's happening. How do you explain it? Is it something in the water? Why so much great talent internationally out of a small city?
Yeah, I think it's the hockey tradition from being a kid growing up there, watching the generation ahead of us with Anders Hedberg and Thomas Gradin and Lars Lindgren and those guys coming through the Modo system and making it over to North America. So it gave my generation with Peter and myself and a bunch of other guys, Nicholas Sandstrom and a lot of the guys born in the early to mid 70s, I hope to actually have a chance to play in the NHL. And after that, like you said, we've had the twins come and Tobias Enstrom and Victor Hedman, and now with the next generation, the Linus Ullmark and Victor Olofsson. So there's more guys coming through the system, which is nice to see.
It's unbelievable. I want to take you back to, like, we all know you. I mean, we know you finished your career with the Rangers. We know you started your career with the Pittsburgh Penguins, even played a little with Mario Lemieux on a line with him. But we all remember you as the captain of the Canucks, the longest standing captain of the Vancouver Canucks. And there's an interesting hook there because you mentioned Thomas Gradin. Here's a guy who was at one point the all-time leading scorer for the Vancouver Canucks, led them to the Stanley Cup back in 1982, and he had an impact on you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, talking about a small world. When I grew up in Örnsköldsvik and was about, I'd say 6 or 7 or 8, maybe, my regular babysitter was sick somehow, and in steps Elsie Gradin, Thomas' mom. So she looked after me for a while there, and she knew, or she saw that I'd liked hockey. So she would tell me stories about Thomas and that he played over in Canada for a team called Vancouver, which was, I mean, we didn't have really TV where you could see a lot of what was going on over in the NHL at that time. But I ended up following Thomas, obviously. I got an autograph photo from him wishing me good luck with my career when
That's
I was
awesome.
7 or 8, and then he was instrumental in trying to get that trade going for me to go from Pittsburgh to Vancouver, and then him working for the organization for all those years. It's quite unique.
It's unbelievable. I mean, statistically, it's crazy. We're in conversation with Markus Naslund, one of the all-time great Vancouver Canucks. This is 7-11 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Gino Reda. I want to talk a little bit about your relationship with Peter Forsberg. Talk about great guys coming. He also came from your town. You guys were actually not only in the same small town, you were born 10 days apart and knew each other pretty well. I guess you went to high school together and you even had summer jobs together. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. You've done good digging here. Yeah, we did work together at a summer job. His dad and my mom worked at the same electrician company. So we got a chance to work together in the summers when we were maybe 13, 14, 15, and got to know each other. I played for another team, not for the Modo team. Peter grew up playing for the Modo team right from day one, but I joined Modo when I was 16. So we were playing and battling against each other all the way up. And it was nice to finally join his team and have him as a centerman. So it's been great for me, obviously, having a chance to play with Peter at the start of my career, but also, I mean, watching him and him coming over and turning into a superstar in the NHL. And opening a lot of doors for a lot of us. So it's funny now. We're actually we didn't really keep in touch a whole lot because of the rivalry between the Avalanche and the Canucks throughout those years. But post retirement, it's been fun. So I've been down visiting him. He lives in Switzerland, and we're part owners in a restaurant together now in Örnsköldsvik as well.
The relationship between you guys is just so awesome. And your personalities are somewhat similar in that you're both pretty quiet guys, despite all that you guys accomplished internationally. And you're both so committed to Sweden and both such a big part of the international success of Sweden. There was a time, I remember, you got drafted in 1991, 16th overall by the Pens. And a lot of times we think here in North America, we think that guys are just really, really anxious to get over here. The second you get drafted, boom, you want to go play CHL, come out here and play here. But that wasn't the case for you. Even after you got drafted, you stayed back and played a couple of years, a couple of very successful years. You played for the men's in the Swedish league at 15 years old. You had back-to-back junior titles at Modo with Peter Forsberg. You decided to stay home for a couple more years. Why was that? Give me a mindset of what it meant for you to stay at home and play as opposed to come to North America when you had the earlier opportunity.
I think my generation, a lot of us looked at it as you wanted to represent Sweden at the World Championship level prior to moving over to North America and trying that out. So that was a goal of mine as well. And I barely made the team the year prior, but then Michael Anderson came back when they got knocked out in the playoffs, and I had to leave as the last guy. So in '92, I made the men's national team, and I played that World Championship. We lost to the Russians in the finals, but I decided it was time for me to try something new. So I ended up signing with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but I want to reflect back on with one of the great performances I've ever seen at the World Junior Hockey Championship, the 1993 World Juniors. You had 13 goals in that World Junior, and it still stands as a record. Yourself and Forsberg, you played with Nicholas Sundstrom, right? Sundstrom was also on your line. All you guys from that hometown. You guys ended up winning the silver. Forsberg had 31 points. You had 24 points between the two of you guys. That's an insane number. What was that experience like for you guys?
Oh, it was definitely a fun memory, but it was also something you look back at and you wish you'd beaten the Canadians, because it was just a round robin tournament at that time, and we ended up losing one game, lost 6-5 to Canada, which was a really tough loss for us because we thought that we were the best team in the tournament. But it's a matter of finding ways to win every game, especially back then. So good memories, obviously, but tough that we couldn't. It was in Sweden as well, and it was really, I think it opened up the interest for World Juniors in Sweden. Now you got lots of people being excited about watching the World Juniors every year, but back then it wasn't that exciting. But we had sold out arenas, and we had a lot of TV coverage as well. So it was groundbreaking that way.
What was it like for yourself and Forsberg at home during this era? Because I could imagine you guys would have been like freaking rock stars at that point. You couldn't have gone anywhere, right?
No, hockey is just like in Canada. Hockey is big in Sweden, and we played senior hockey for Modo from maybe 17, 18, and so we'd been around a little bit. Peter had already won the World Championships for the men's team in the Czech Republic, I think it was, or the year before. So people knew of us, and there was obviously pressure for us to deliver too, and that's why I'm saying it was difficult to see that we only ended up winning the silver.
Yeah, that was tough. We're in conversation with Markus Naslund, one of the greatest Swedes of all time. This is the 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Chino Retta. So, Markus, let me take you then. So now you've won a couple of silver medals at the World Junior. You played at the Men's World Championship. You played the men's seniors in Sweden. You decide you're going to make the transition to the NHL now. The Pens had drafted you 16th overall. It was a bit of a slow start for you making that transition. You weren't getting probably all the ice and opportunity you wanted. You got sent up and down a few times. That must have been really, really difficult for you in the early part. But then in the start of your third season, you just rock it. Part of that is the fact that you're playing with Mario Lemieux. You had 36 points in the first 29 games that season. What was that like hooking up with Mario in year 3?
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I look back at now and cherish just having the chance to play on the same team, but not only that, playing on the same line with Mario was unreal, and I idolized him growing up, so I was in awe of him. But that whole experience in Pittsburgh, it was difficult, but I think I got a fair chance. Initially, I played with Ron Francis and Joey Mullen, so that's a decent line with 2 Hall of Famers. I mean, half our team were Hall of Famers or ended up being Hall of Famers. So it was a unique group there. But I learned a lot, even though it was difficult years for me. I learned a lot just watching those guys and knowing what it took to be a professional. And also,
you had a special relationship with Ronnie Francis, where he had a conversation and pulled you aside and spoke to you about how to go out there and start enjoying yourself. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, Ronnie was great. Ronnie was rooming with Alf Samuelsson, who's still is a good friend of his. But when Alfie got traded to New York my last year, I got the chance to room with Ronnie. So he really mentored me, and he had a calming effect on me. And he's such a classy and wise man too. So he that's true. He told me to just take a deep breath and relax, and he helped me a lot, not being so tense and not putting so much pressure on myself. So I owe Ronnie a lot.
Yeah, and then came the turning point. In March of 1996, you get traded to the Vancouver Canucks, and I almost want to say, then the rest is history, because that's really where things really started to turn around with you. So you finished up the 96 season with the Canucks and then re-signed with them as a UFA. Not, I guess, the best of starts when Mike Keenan came in, because Mike Keenan, it's interesting because week after week, I got to tell you the number of times I've had special guests like yourself on the show when people go, yeah, and then Mike Keenan came in and took over the team and that made things awkward. Yeah, and Mike wanted me to change my style and that made things awkward. We understand Iron Mike. He's got his own principles and he was a winning coach, but sometimes things didn't gel with a style of a person's player. What was that like with you when Iron Mike comes in there?
No, it was tense because we didn't have a general manager either. So there was a lot, and the team was struggling. I think it would have been a different relationship if we would be winning, because Mike hated losing. So that made it even more tense. But in all fairness, he was tough on me initially too, and I probably deserved quite a bit of that. I needed to mature and have thicker skin and being able to accept being challenged in different ways. But at the end of the time there, he ended up giving me an assistant captain role, and I got ice time. So I think somehow he turned the corner, or I turned the corner. Maybe he maybe pushed me to mature in many ways, and when he saw I did, and he gave me more responsibility.
Yeah, you talked about having an opportunity to play with and be teammates with Hockey Hall of Famers. You were, I talked about the fact you're the longest serving captain in Vancouver Canucks history. You took the C over from a guy who mentored you, who's one of the great leaders of all time in NHL history. As a matter of fact, there's the Mark Messier Leadership Award now handed out annually. What did you learn from Mess, and how important were the things that he taught you before he ended up leaving to go on to New York and leaving the captaincy for you?
Well, there's a lot of things that Mess taught me and my teammates, but the one thing that stands out for me is how much he cared for the team, and how hard he worked to get the team to gel together, and also how professional he was. Whether if he might have had a slump or not, you couldn't tell. He was always team first, and very classy individual that helped me a lot too. And I got the chance to play with him and watch him daily. And even though he was getting a little bit older, he was still a world-class player, I thought.
So now there's a change of the guard, because when Mess is there, McGillney's there, Pavel Bure, it was a whole different group. And now you got this young core that you're captaining. I mean, Bertuzzi, Brendan Morrison, Jovo, Jovanovski, Matthias Olin. What was that like when it suddenly became your core group? I don't want to just say you personally, but your core group then got to take over things and say, let's make this our team. Let's move forward and change the face of this organization and franchise.
It was definitely a little bit of added pressure. We all had to step into bigger roles, and I said right from the get-go that I'm going to need a lot of help here from the other guys. We were young, but we had been in the league for 5, 6, 7 years, and we're at the age where we needed to take this to the next step. And we had a few rough years where we missed the playoffs, and it was a good opportunity for us to show that we could get better and challenge the better teams in the West, which I think we did. Unfortunately, we had a steady climb there, but for some reason we just couldn't put it together when it all counted, and that haunts me to this day, because I think we had a good thing going.
One of the great things, as a matter of fact, at that point, one of the greatest lines for that particular era at that moment, you were part of the West Coast Express. For our audience who maybe doesn't remember that line, tell them about it.
Yeah, I got the chance to play with Todd. I forgot what season we started to play together with Andrew Castles initially as our centerman. Yep. Andrew being a excellent playmaker and great player overall. But so we started to find some chemistry, and I think we played together for almost a year. But then they Alex McGillney got traded to New Jersey and for Brendan Morrison, and Brendan Morrison eventually got a chance to step into that role as a centerman and did an outstanding job. So we I don't know how many years we played together, but probably 3, 4, 5 maybe, and it was the most fun years I've had playing hockey, playing with Brendan and stuff. Oh yeah, without a doubt, because it was we complemented each other so well, and Brendan did a lot of the dirty work and the defensive role and covering up for me and Todd, and he would give me the puck, and then I would give it to Todd, and Todd usually carried it, and being the big man that he is, and with the hands and skill and vision that he had, he was a key factor, obviously, for our success.
The Morrison, I gotta believe that Morrison, because he used to say it to us. He just said, "Sometimes I feel like I'm freaking invisible out there. I go out there, dig the puck out of the corner, bust my ass to get the puck to these guys, but I never get it back." Did he ever say that to you?
It did a lot of times, and again, I can't say enough good things about Brendan and how he unselfishly did a lot of the dirty work for our line, and never complained. But he is one of the most underrated players that I've ever come across. And the other thing was, we had so much fun outside of the rink. We got along so well, and we still keep in touch, and don't get to see each other as often as we want, but we still have that close friendship.
You guys did some amazing stuff. Naslund, Bertuzzi, Morrison line. You guys, at one point, I remember there was a streak. We had 8 goals, 21 points in just 14 games. And then you had a career best in the 02-03 season, I think. You had a career best 48 goals, 104 points, and you finished second in the Art Ross that year, and in the Richard as well for goals that year. Was that the year where you finally felt, okay, I'm finally able to accomplish the things I know I've always known I could do, and now I'm finally starting to be able to taste that?
Yeah, I think even the year before we had a lot of success as a line, but that year it all came together, and and you got to remember too, at that point there was a low scoring era, and we found ways to create chances, even though there were tight games and a lot of clutching and grabbing, and so it was a lot of fun, because we felt that we would get chances really every shift. Every time we stepped on the ice, we knew that we would have possibilities of scoring, and a lot of times we did. And we had a few setup plays on the power play that worked that year really well, where Todd would push off in the front and got a pass from down low from Brendan, and so a lot of things clicked that season for us.
Given what you went through with the organization and the rises and the tumultuous stuff, how closely do you watch what's going on right now with Elias Pettersson? And there's a lot of great talent on that Vancouver Canucks team, but it just doesn't seem to be clicking for them right now. How closely are you watching, and what's your take on what's going on?
I definitely watch. I don't maybe get over as often as I'd like, or see full games, but I keep a track on the organization and how they're doing. And I feel for both the players and the staff, but also the fans. I mean, we got great, passionate fans in Vancouver, and I mean, the team has been around since 1970 and still know the Stanley Cups. So I'm really hoping that they could take this group and adjust it maybe a little bit and build something for the future that's going to end up paying off for a championship, because I think the whole city really deserves that.
I want to think back to kind of actually a rough moment for you back in March of 2001. And it actually ended up helping to change the rule where there's the races for pucks against the boards and the protecting players. Just for those who don't remember, you were having an amazing year, career year. 41 goals, 75 points in the first 72 games that year. You got hit by Jay McKee and Rhett Warner while you were chasing a puck, and it broke your leg in 2 different places. What do you remember of that time?
Well, it was really the first significant injury I'd had, and it's probably good that they changed the icing rule, but I didn't think there wasn't anything dirty with that incident itself. It was unfortunate. I got my foot caught in a rut too, and I put all my weight on the leg, so it cracked. But it was difficult, and it was also, I mean, had to put a titanium rod and screws in my leg, which I still have. But at that time, you never know how you're going to recover from that. And that was the toughest part, I think, mentally, is not knowing if I'm ever going to be 100% again. At the year before, there's a famous Swedish soccer player named Henrik Larsson that played for Manchester United and Barcelona and a bunch of. He played in Scotland for a long time, but he was a world-class soccer player, and he broke his leg the year prior. So he made a recovery. So I looked at him and seen that it's possible to get back to a top level even with a big injury like that. So luckily I felt that I recovered to 100% also, and was able to play the next season.
And not just play. You had another phenomenal year. You had 40 goals and 90 points, and you finished second in the Art Ross to Jerome McGinley. That must have been so encouraging for you, because it could have scared the heck out of you thinking, am I ever going to be okay here?
Yeah, no, I did have some sleepless nights for sure, but I think the body itself it fascinating too, because I walked with a limp the whole. So even though I felt injury free and I was working out and stuff, I still had the limp, and I'm like, is there something wrong with me? I'm limping still, and then one day it just disappeared. So I don't know if it's the body protecting itself somehow till it's fully healed, but yeah, it was great to see that I could come back and trust that everything works. And I mean, it's that mental barrier that you had to get over initially too, but I felt comfortable fairly quickly.
And you came back and you had 3 straight 40 or more goal years, led the team in Vancouver in scoring 7 different times, and you continued to build the legend that was Markus Naslund with the Vancouver Canucks organization. We're in conversation with Markus Naslund. This is the 7-11 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Chino Retta. Something I thought was kind of cool about you, Markus, was the fact you're old school. You don't like new things. You don't like to change things. You are one of the last holdouts with the wooden stick and the leather skates. Why was that so important to you, to stick what was working for you and just didn't want to give it up?
No, I don't know. I mean, in hindsight, I ended up changing to a composite stick my last year, but I never gave it the time, because I felt that I think it was more the blade than anything. When you receive the pass, you don't have a lot of time to settle the puck down, and I wanted it to lay flat on my stick, and I found that without the wooden blade, it was difficult. So I never, and plus I didn't have a slap shot either, so I never.
You did have a great wrist shot, though.
Well, I tried to use my wrist shot instead. So, but no, for some reason I just stuck with what I felt comfortable. And I remember I used Bauer skates my whole career, and I think it was the last year, they said, because they made them look like a newer model, even though they're really heavy and stiff. And they told me, we're running out of material, the old material now, so you got to change. So yeah, but I think I had enough skates in the back that it got me through the career.
That's hilarious. That is, you outlasted the leather skate. That's insane.
Yeah,
but
they were. Yeah.
One of the great pieces of video, you talked about the fact that, initially in the early part of your career, or before you started, there wasn't a lot of TV of the NHL back home. That obviously changed dramatically with so many incredibly successful Swedes that made the jump up and accomplished all the stuff you did. But probably one of the biggest pieces of videos that you probably got commented on, and I want to hear about you, the kind of reaction you got this, was in 2002, an opening faceoff with Queen Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. At a ceremonial face-off. What was that entire experience like? What kind of security do you have to go through, and when you're meeting the Queen at center ice?
Yeah, that was a big deal. I didn't realize how big of a deal that was coming into that game. But we had to go through a whole thing prior to the game, and we were told we couldn't skate straight towards her, and we couldn't say anything to her. We would, just like a rookie, only speak when you're spoken to. So, but that was neat to be part of it, and they had obviously the both members from the female and the men's Olympic gold team from Canada there, as well as the great one was there, and so it made for a wonderful picture, which I still have back home.
So she drops the puck. You pick the puck up and you hand it to her the way you're supposed to because you're the captain. And then she said something to you, but you weren't mic'd up, so none of us know. What did she say to you at that point?
No, she said that the last game she went to was in, I don't know, 1958 in Toronto or something like that. So it was a big leap from the last game, but it was kind of cute. She remembered being at a hockey game before, though.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You talked about your relationship with Peter Forsberg, and I know the way you two feel about each other because I've spoken to both of you about it. Had a great opportunity to be there when Peter was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, which was amazing. And I'm sure that was amazingly received well back. You got to play together in junior, but obviously you didn't get to play in the NHL together. But you did get a special moment together on the line in 2003 at the All-Star game. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, that was neat. It was me, him, and Todd on a line. I don't think we had great success in the actual game, but it
was an All-Star game. Who cares? You got to play with them.
No, it was wonderful. And I mean, just watching Peter year after year, what he did and how he changed the perception with many others too, the perception of Swedish hockey players too, just how physical he played. And in hindsight, that's the one thing I would have liked to have a chance to is to play with Peter for an NHL season. And I actually tried to get him to sign with Vancouver after the lockout in 2005, but with the rivalry we had with Colorado, he just couldn't do that. And then and then the 2004, 2005, that lockout season too, I came back in January, and he had played that full year. And first game back, he breaks his hand, and then we actually played my last half year, I should say, in Modo. We got a chance to play together for a little bit. I think he broke his rib there, so he got injured lots and with his foot and stuff at the tail end. But it was neat because my comeback, he had played a few games prior, and Nicholas Sundström was on the team, so the opening lineup was the old world junior line. I don't know, 20, almost 20 years later. So the building was buzzing.
Which is amazing. And you accomplished something in 2003, which is amazing. I mean, the Hart Trophy is spectacular. It's fantastic. The Hart's great. It's, but the Lester Pearson is voted on by your peers. That's when the players decide who the best player in the game is. And in 2003, you got named the Lester Pearson Award winner, the first Swede that ever happened to you. What was that like to hear that and to know that your peers respected you the way they did, and knowing the impression you were going to make back home in receiving that honor? Yeah,
it was definitely maybe the highlight of my career. Very humbling. I didn't expect it at all. It was myself and Joe Thornton and Peter being the three the candidates. But it was it's a moment that I never will forget either. And also with Peter winning the Art Ross and the competition we had leading up to that, it was neat that we won a couple of individual awards as well.
You retired in 2009, 35 years old. You were second at that point in goal scoring all time Swedish players, behind only Mats Sundin. What are your memories like now when you look back on your career, and what's it like to kind of reflect back on all you've accomplished? And I mean, obviously in Sweden still, I'm guessing you can't go into, I was going to say in a Starbucks. I'm not sure. Do you have Starbucks in Sweden?
They do.
Yeah, you can't walk into Starbucks without constantly being recognized. What's it been like for you post-retirement?
It's been good. Actually, I don't think anyone recognizes me anymore.
Or they give you
Really,
some space.
maybe, but it's been great. I have nothing but fond memories from my career. I would have wanted to win that championship, no doubt, but I knew I gave it my all. And the other thing too, I got to leave the game on my terms. I had 2 years. I had a 2-year contract with the Rangers, but I felt after my first year that I was declining. The last 2 or 3 years, I was not getting better. I felt, and you need to have that jump to get the room that you need as an offensive player to make plays and get scoring chances. And I felt that I was getting less and less space that way. So it was the right time for me to say thank you and call it a career. But it's been a wonderful ride, and I'm so blessed.
Still enjoying life?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, like I said, hockey is giving me a platform that is unique, and also having the chance to live in Canada for so many years. It's a wonderful place to live and play, and you never know where you end up when you get drafted or when you head over to North America. But I was lucky to play some of the best places in the world.
That's awesome. Before I let you go, and you've been great with your time, and which is amazing, I want to play 5 fun facts with you. Each week we ask our guests 5 quick questions to give us some insights and maybe some things that didn't come up in an interview. You game for that? You up for that?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. Who was your hockey idol when you were growing up?
Well, I had Wayne as one, obviously, even though I didn't get to see him more than maybe Canada Cups and tournaments like that. But and then I also had 2 Swedish snipers in Håkan Loob and Markus Naslund that I looked up to.
Great choices. Who was your favorite teammate during your career and why?
Oh, that's a difficult one. But I would pick Todd and Brendan just because, like I said earlier, that was the most fun I had playing hockey, and they were a big part of that.
Who did you hate playing against the most?
I hated it playing against Nick Lidstrom just because he would. It was difficult to play against a tough, physical defenseman too. But Nick, just because it was so difficult to beat him, he would always give you the gap and always be in the right place. So I found him very difficult to play against. Swedish
roots, but you say you love your time in Canada. What was your favorite music, or more favorite? Canadian legends Tragically Hip or Swedish greats ABBA?
ABBA, without a doubt.
All right. You're still living in Sweden. You got to say that.
Yeah.
Your single favorite hockey moment?
Oh, that's a tough one. I played a tournament back home in Sweden where it's called the TV Puck, where they televised youth tournament for 15-year-olds that I ended up watching from when I was 6, and our team ended up winning. And that was, at that time, that was a huge thing for all of us in that age group. So that was a big moment.
This has been a big moment for me, Markus. It's been a lot of years since you and I touched base. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm so glad things are going so well for you. I really, really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Gino, for having me on.
All the best to you, my friend.
Thank you. You too.
Vancouver Canucks legend Markus Naslund. The Overtime Podcast is proudly presented by 7-Eleven. Before leaving the rink, order your favorite Slurpee, fresh 100% premium Arabica coffee, hot from the oven pizza and wings, a pint of ice cream, or even a carton of milk, eggs, and loaf of bread from the 7 Now app, and Team 7-Eleven will have your order ready for pickup 24/7. Hey, if you missed any parts of the show, don't worry. Visit our website at theovertimepodcast.ca, where you can both listen and subscribe to future shows. 7-Eleven's Overtime Podcast can be found on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, iTunes Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. Until next week, I'm Gino Reda saying so long, hockey fans, and thanks for joining us on the 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast.